All right, we're live. Woo! Here on MCU Mondays, where today we're not talking about anything to do with the MCU, but that's okay. That's okay because the MCU doesn't have anything out right now. So we're going to talk about some of the other movies that are out. Already got Eddie Birdie in the house. Hiya, Eddie. Good to see you. Thanks for hanging out with us. I, of course, am your host, Chris. As always, I am joined by a wonderful co-host, Debbie. Debbie, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Doing good. Glad to be back on the bandwagon here. Even though it isn't
bandwagon,
Marvel.
it is. Yes, today we're talking about Super Mario Brothers movie briefly. We're going to have a spoiler-free review on that. We're probably going to talk more in depth about that next week, but I want to be able to give people time to see it because I know this Sunday, maybe you had free time to see it. It was Easter. I know I was doing stuff with family. We didn't get a chance to go then, but I had free time today, so I saw it. And it was good. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. I'm not going to spoil anything. I'm going to give you a chance to see it yourself. But then after that, we're going to talk all about the Dungeons and Dragons movie, which has been out for a couple weeks now. And I'm definitely looking forward to talking about that because I enjoyed the film. What did you think of it, Debbie? Did you like it or did you not like it?
I liked it. I mean, there's probably stuff. I don't play.
All right, she said she liked it. That's all I was looking for.
Right. That's all you're looking for.
We're going to talk more in depth on that in just a minute. Make sure that we're firing on all cylinders here. Okay, and we are.
Well, that's always debatable.
Oh my goodness, which means that it's time for our theme song. The theme song will get us started. And I made a new one for today.
Oh, no.
You should just cue the music.
It's MC Mondays on Geek We're talking about
Dungeons and Dragons. You know you like that.
Nice.
We're talking about Dungeons and Dragons.
It's
I didn't want to say. I was like, we're not talking about Marvel. I can't leave that in there. I had to clip over that. Yeah, because we're not talking about Marvel. We're talking about Super Mario Brothers and mainly Dungeons and Dragons. So let's start with Super Mario Brothers so we can get that out of the way. I would just recommend going to see it. I had a lot of fun with it. I have no big complaints. I have some minor complaints, but they're really not worth talking about. They're nothing that would keep me from going to see it again. I actually want to go see it again with another person, just because I know they're a huge Nintendo fan, so they're going to enjoy it. I think if you are a Nintendo fan of really... There's so many references in this movie to so many Nintendo things. It is outrageous. Like, even when they're still... Before they've even gone into the Mushroom Kingdom, just in Brooklyn, there's tons and tons and tons of references. Even if you're like not looking for them, you'll just be every once in a while something will catch your eye, or you'll hear something. That's another thing that was great is like all the sounds were just like the sounds from the game, and there was just a lot of fun. I think it was great for kids. I think it's great for adults. And yeah, I don't want to give any spoilers, but I really like the way that the story ended up turning out, how things ended up going. I liked Peach. I was worried they kind of framed it as she's going to be like the ultimate girl boss. And I'm not saying that she wasn't strong. She was. The great thing was she didn't like overshadow Mario. Like she was still able to be an awesome kick-ass character, and so was Mario. I really like the way they did it, and I love that they set it up. It looks like they set it up for like future connecting movies. And even if they didn't connect entirely to this one, if they're just like, if they do another movie like this, I'm definitely going to see it. So that's all I'll say. I recommend Super Mario Brothers movie.
So I know, and I haven't seen it.
The Nintendo Cinematic Universe.
That's what I was going to say.
But
Nintendo.
MCU works. I get it. MCU.
I didn't see it yet. I have played it back in the day. But I was going to ask you, Chris, there was a lot of complaints on the internet when the trailer first came out because of Pratt's voice.
Mm-hmm.
Was that very distracting at all, or did it get better?
Well, here's the thing is it's actually explained in universe very quickly at the beginning of the movie. So like there is an explanation given, and the original Mario voice actor plays two different roles in the film.
Oh.
Yeah. So it's all, I don't want to give anything away. I don't want to like, but it is explained in the film. And that was something that I was worried about. I was like, Chris Pratt for Mario? But the way that they explained it is funny. It makes sense. And I think all the voice actors did a pretty good job. Seth Rogen as Donkey Kong, it's like, I feel like there wasn't the same energy there. It's funny as that, but and who would they have gotten that would be better? I don't know. And he does fit the character, but they could have done a little bit better. But there's so many different things. Like if you liked Mario Kart, there's tons of Mario Kart stuff, and not just in one sequence, in several different sequences. There's like Super Smash Brothers stuff that when they were doing the Super Smash, I was like, now you can see a Super Smash Brothers movie coming together after they do a Star Fox movie and maybe like a Kirby movie or a Zelda movie, and then bring all that stuff together in the Super Smash Brothers. It's like, I'll show up to that if they keep making it like this too and putting out this level of movie. I'm there.
Shut up and take my money.
So on a scale of 1 to 10.
I give it like an 8.5, 9, just solid, fun,
That's
good
pretty
time.
good for you.
Yeah, I'm very usually I usually have nitpicks
6.
and yeah. I like to be honest, and so if I'm giving something this good of a review, you should be like, oh, you know. And of course, they're like, when we get down to it, when we do the full review, I'll let you know like my nitpicky things. But there's very few things. It's for the most part that kept the flow. It kept everything entertained. It's not like one part dragged on too long. It's not like I didn't like this. I think everything kind of came together. Was very fun, very funny. The kids were all having a good time. I think most of the adults had a really good time as well. And I think it's just a lot of fun. And
it did very well at the box office.
And movies, you know, there are a lot of people's problems with a lot of modern movies, and Disney is like, they feel like they're being preached at. I did not feel any preachiness in this, you know, like how you're going to feel when the new Little Mermaid comes out or when the new Peter Pan comes out. Okay. You're going to feel like, oh, they're preaching. This movie does not do that at all. It's just aimed on having a solid, fun, good time. And some of the scenes I was like, I'm literally feeling like I'm sitting there playing video games and that level of enjoyment. And some of the characters, when they do team ups, you know, I don't want to give anything away, but like there's a lot of where you're just like, wow, the visuals are fantastic. It's just, especially if you're a Nintendo fan, you're going to love it. But even if you know nothing about Nintendo, I think it's still a solid, fun, like, movie for all ages, you know. And that's what someone else says, like, if you don't like it, just remember it's targeted at kids. I wouldn't say that it's targeted only at kids. I think it's targeted to be a movie for all ages, enjoyment of all ages, because there are movies out there that are just for kids and an adult is not going to enjoy them. I think this is one that everyone can enjoy.
Yeah, a lot of the reviews I've seen, and this is just on the internet, not necessarily Rotten Tomatoes, because I don't pay attention to those. But a lot of the people on the internet that were given reviews were saying this was a really good, nostalgic, fun family movie. So, and
that's the thing, is like not just the sound effects, but also the music. You'll hear the musical cues from the games you remember. Obviously, Mario is one of the biggest ones, but there's other characters in this too. And one of my favorite songs came on during like in the middle, and I was like, yeah, they did it. But I wanted to, like, again, I don't want to spoil anything for those who haven't seen it. So I just recommend going to see it. We are going to talk about it all next week. So full review next Monday. And that's my spoiler-free review, is go see it so that we can talk about it, because it's an enjoyable movie. I would expect you to enjoy it. And the critics, I've seen some of the critics negative review, but here's the thing about that is like, so often, especially in like the past 10 years, there's some movies that audience and critics agree this was a great movie. But a lot of times I'll see like the audience score be real high and the critics score be low, or the audience score be low, but the critics score be high. I'm usually agreeing with the audience. And a lot of the times I think critics, they actually look at things too critically sometimes, and they're looking at it through a lens that like the average moviegoer is not going to relate to. Now, having been to film school and studied this stuff, I can see both sides of it, but I try to keep part of myself thinking of like, okay, I might have all these little nitpicky, all these problems or whatever that I might, as a film person, I might have a problem with. But what's the casual person who's just going to have fun? What are they going to think about this? And the critics have usually been on the same side as like the message. If you're pushing the whatever, they're gonna be like, oh, this movie's great, it's, you know, it's championing women, it's championing this, that, the other, and that's what people are tired of. Not that those are bad things necessarily, but it's like I see that every day in my workplace. I had to go to HR to get like a lecture on how we treat people in the workplace. I just wanted to go see a movie to escape from all this stuff, and I can't even get that in kids movies anymore. Well, for the Super Mario Brother, you get that escapism, you get that fun. It's just a chance to go to another world and enjoy yourself, and I think that's a great thing. And again, if they keep doing stuff like that, I think they've got they've already got money from the video games, but I think you could see a real surge in a Nintendo universe. I'd be in for it. Definitely.
Yeah, I've seen other people suggest that too. So,
and it's
all for Nintendo cinematic universe.
It's something unique kind of to Nintendo as well, because other platforms have, you know, big characters like Master Chief and Halo, but not like you wouldn't expect a connected universe of the type that Nintendo could put together, because it's just like they're all cartoon characters. They're just in their own cartoon worlds, and we connected them. But you couldn't have like, oh, Master Chief is now, you'd have to, there'd be way more hoops to jump through. This is just like, it's kids games. It's a party. It's a Nintendo party. Like, everyone's fine with that. So they have a good opportunity, I think, here. But yeah, that's it for Mario. Go see it so we can talk more about it next week. For now, let's talk about the Dungeons and Dragons movie, Honor Among Thieves, which I was very worried about because there is that other Dungeons and Dragons movie that's just terrible. But I thought this one was pretty fun. I thought that Chris Pine did a good job. I thought most of the actors did a good job. There was some of all the men are either clumsy fools or evil, except the main chick. The main evil person was a bad chick, so you can't really say that. But like, oh man, the sorcerer dude at times, it was like, just get over it, dude. And he finally does. But that was just like, oh my goodness. And then, but as I was thinking about it, I was like, the fact that he did have that to get over kind of made him a more developed character than that changeling chick, because you met her and that's just who she was the entire film. He actually got this moment of gaining self-confidence. So when I was watching the movie, I was like, I don't know how I feel about this. And at the end, I was like, well, at least his character progressed and developed and got through it. And for the most part, I was just having a good time. And I will say, starting from the very beginning, I really like the way the movie starts. Debbie, have you played Dungeons and Dragons, the game? Like,
no, my oldest son does.
Okay.
I know diddly squat.
Okay, well, so for you and anyone else who might not play the game, you're basically on an adventure. You make up your character and you start out on this adventure. The dungeon master, who's another player, kind of like decides what's around you and where you're going. But your character is your own creation and your backstory is your own. So this movie starts with the characters in prison and starts by him giving their backstory, which they show in flashbacks. And I'm like, this is perfect, because like this is how the game starts, that you getting to know the other characters in the game, learning their backstories. And I'm like, this is the perfect way to start the movie. Now we know their backstories, we're all caught up to the very beginning of the movie, and it's short, it's concise, it tells you everything important that you're going to need to know later, and leads you up to where they are right now, which then turns into a hilarious escape out the window. And that's when I knew, when they grabbed the bird guy. Jonathan would love this so much. If he were here, forget about Jonathan. He's stuck in a snowstorm. And so he keeps telling the thing. And then he gets it. I just know that Sir Jonathan would really appreciate this if he were here. He's like, just get on with it. The dude finally shows up. He's an eagle man. Now, this whole time, I was thinking that Chris Pine, who's kind of like a bard, he's kind of sneaky. He wanted this guy to be there because that guy actually would. There's something in the story that like maybe he made up that this guy would appreciate, and he wishes he was there. So the guy shows up, and they're like, "Nah, this is over. We're not going to hear any more testimony. Whatever." They grab this eagle man and jump out the window and use him to fly away from the prison. And I was like, "Oh, they only wanted him there so that they could grab him." And jumped out the window. And as they're jumping out the window, the rest of the magistrate that they were talking to, trying to gain their freedom, is like, wait, we were gonna set you free. So like they didn't need to do that. And that right there is kind of like something amazing that they got. Like you might think they were just playing that for humor, but that's actually really reminds me of playing an actual Dungeons and Dragons game, because you don't know how the dice are going to roll. Like you could do the petition, and maybe if the dice roll is right, you get set free, but maybe not. So you don't want to take that chance. So it's like, fine, we abduct this guy and jump out the window with them. And it's like, why would you make that decision? And it's like, well, we didn't. And there's lots of moments in this movie where like things get kind of hectic and stuff like that happens. And I was like, that brought to me the feeling of a Dungeons and Dragons game, which I really appreciated. So, Debbie, I just rambled for way too long. I'd like to hear some of your thoughts on the film.
Well, like I said at the beginning of the show, I liked it. There was moments that I laughed. There was moments I didn't laugh, but there was two guys who were sitting in the row in front of me off to the side. And, I mean, they were just cracking up. And I was like, well, I must have missed an inside joke related.
Wish I had smoked whatever weed they had before I came in here.
So I mean,
they're just like, look, a guy with wings.
I mean, it didn't ruin the movie for me, but I just kind of figured maybe there's something game related that I didn't catch on to, which is fine. I mean, I found the movie to be funny. It was action. There was action. There was a few times where I thought it kind of dragged a little bit, but that's just me. Yeah, I enjoyed the characters. I always like Chris Pine and the one guy. Oh, he's the one who was hiding the helmet.
The Paladin.
Yeah,
his name.
I know him from Bridgerton. So
It's the gentleman from Bridgerton.
Yes.
Yes. All
Yes.
of the ladies were like, hello.
Yes. And
Chris Pine is even like, forget this guy. I'm supposed to be the handsome guy. Get out of here, other handsome guy. That guy, actually, I was like expecting not to like him, but then he kept being, he was such the straight man. And by straight man, I'm not talking about sexuality. I'm talking about jokes. As in, like, if some people are joking, this is the person that's taking everything at face value, taking everything seriously. And he
doesn't understand ironic or sarcastic.
He does it so well. It's like, I feel that irony is a blade that cuts the wielder as well as the one it is used against. Like, Chris Pine is like, what is with this guy? And that's really funny because that's also like when people play Dungeons and Dragons, sometimes they really get into their character. I have a friend that when he plays, like, he gets into character, and from when the game starts, he will not understand like regular talk. You have to talk through his character. And so like that guy, I was like, I could see him playing that character and just taking it to the umpteenth level. And that worked. I thought that worked great. And like you said, the action I thought was pretty well done. And there were lots of different action sequences.
Mhm.
All pretty well done. Hugh Grant was a bad guy. Nobody saw that coming. They in the beginning they're like an Archon man, and they say whatever his name is, and I was like, okay, well, they were all thieves, but there was one guy literally who was a con man on the and it's like, well, he
Mhm.
conned the team, of course. That's what the con man does.
And I liked is her name Helga or Olga or something like that?
Yeah,
Chris's partner.
Michelle Rodriguez.
Yeah. Yeah, I really liked her to just do the magic.
Just do it with magic. She's always telling him to do it with magic, and of course, and it's great because she. This is another thing. When I was talking about Super Mario, people were worried about like Princess Peach just being the ultimate girl boss, doing everything, and I think she was another one that people were worried about that happening. And she is their brawler. She's like their tank.
Mhm.
So she solves problems with her fists, but when the problem calls for like a plan making or spell casting or anything else, she's kind of useless. She's super useful when there's like ass to be kicked.
Mhm.
She takes down multiple like anyone who's not a main character pretty much gets taken down by her at some point in like a fight sequence, which I was pretty fine with. Like, she's doing her job. She's tanking most of the damage, and that's what she's there for. Chris Pine's there to make the plan, and then once the plan inevitably goes awry, to make a new plan.
Right. Yeah, I thought as a team, they all pretty well work together because they all, Chris, he tries to make a plan and usually has to make 20 or 30 backup plans. And, the sorcerer comes in handy with the basic stuff until the very end of it. I really liked the creatures that, what's her name? The shapeshifter girl? Durak?
Something.
Yeah,
I saw this 3 weeks ago at an early screening. So
I saw it today.
I remember like the plot and everything, but the names are sometimes like, oh, I no recollection of what their name was.
I liked some of the characters that she turned into. They were pretty nifty. I liked the creatures. I mean, more well-known ones like deers and mice and.
Yeah, there's that whole escape sequence where she's going down as a spy or as a fly to spy.
Mhm.
And then during the escape, she turns into like 10 different animals on the running. And that was very cool. But one of the coolest things was the owl bear.
Yes. That was probably my favorite.
Which came in at the end when she turns at the very end when they're like after they're done fighting the evil and they win. Surprise, surprise. Oh no. Well, spoiler, I told you it was spoilers, but they win. She comes in like the witch lady's down, and then suddenly the owlbear just comes charging in and like does a Hulk slam, like I am a god.
Chris is like, I think she's had enough, and she didn't.
And she's just like, like, okay, well now she's had enough. Still, an undead necromancer lady that was about to enslave an entire city. I say you don't take chances with that kind of thing. I'm with the shapeshifter on that one. Hello, Catherine. Thank you for watching, even though it's what 2 a.m., 3 a.m. over there in Scotland. Yeah, Glasgow. We appreciate it. Appreciate you stopping by, even though we're talking about Dungeons and Dragons. Which I think was the humor in the movie. I don't think you had to be a Dungeons and Dragons fan to enjoy this. Like, Debbie, you've never played the game and you still enjoyed the movie.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. Yeah, I did.
Yeah. And as someone that has played Dungeons and Dragons and read tons of books based on the world of Dungeons and Dragons and played a bunch of video games based in the world of Dungeons and Dragons, there were tons of Easter eggs there for people like me. Like, for instance, when they first escape from the tower in the north, they're running south. it overlays like a map while they're running across fields and stuff, so you can see them moving down. And it shows them running out of Icewind Dale. Icewind Dale is a huge video game series, and books are based around that area. Neverwinter City itself, there's the whole game series Neverwinter Nights takes place like in that city. So these are video games a lot of people have played, even if they didn't realize, oh, that's set in the Dungeons and Dragons universe. That's where all that comes from. So there are lots of little Easter eggs like that you can get. But one of the things I really enjoyed about it was the amount of humor and fun, and I think that it worked real well. There's just so many different moments. Like the skeletons got me. The whole thing with them digging up the guys and asking them the questions. And it's like, you can only ask them 3 questions. And the first time they just mess it up. So they have to dig up another dead guy. And they're like, okay, well, this time they'll get it right. And they do get it right, but that guy doesn't know the answer that they're looking. He died before he has the answer. They need to dig up another and that just keeps happening. And it's just like, okay, this is hilarious. Like that was.
And then the one guy that they never asked the last question.
Yeah, they just left him there because if you didn't ask him all the questions, then they just stay alive. It's like we'll ask him another question. You can't just leave him here like that.
What's your favorite food? What's your favorite book?
Never was much of a reader.
Yeah, it was a good movie. I enjoyed it, and like I said, I'm like you said, there's plenty of Easter eggs which I wouldn't have noticed, but I don't think that for me really matters since I never played the game or read the books or anything. So
let's talk about things we didn't like. I know one thing that I didn't like, and this is just a stupid thing, but why was both him and his wife, his dead wife, who he's trying to resurrect, big plot point, never does, of course, because Olga dies and he's got to save her.
mm-hmm.
Obvious choice, because it's like, your daughter didn't know her real mother, so who cares? This person raised her. It's like, oh, what message are we sending? If you have the choice to resurrect your real mother or your foster mother, always pick your foster mother because you're more familiar with her.
Yeah, well, he was doing it purely for selfish reasons. I mean,
yeah, he just wanted.
She didn't remember him at all. Yeah.
No, he was in love with her. But okay, so here's the thing. This is the thing that bugged me. When they're in the flashback, when they're both hiding under the covers from a dragonfly. Dragonflies.
Does that mean something in
No, they're just dragonflies. They don't hurt people. They're not poisonous. I don't think they bite. I've seen I've never heard of someone being bitten by a dragonfly. They're both like afraid of this. I'm like, I've seen another scene where you're fighting a dragon. I'm having a hard time making this the same character in my mind. Like,
yeah, I didn't understand that, but I thought maybe that had something to had something to do with the game, and that's why I didn't understand why they were like freaking out over a dragonfly.
No, it had nothing to do with the game. It was just a stupid scene that the stupid writers were using because they needed a way for him to remember her when it comes to the resurrection scene. So when that dragonfly flies by, when he's thinking about resurrecting Olga, he's like, she would want me to do this, is what you're supposed to think as the person. But I'm just sitting there going, how come you're not freaking out about the dragonfly now? You don't care that there's a dragonfly 2 feet away from you? I was just being cute with my wife. Well, it wasn't cute, and it was just weird, and you confused everyone. It's a fantasy movie, and that's the most confusing thing in it. Second most confusing thing in it. First most confusing thing was when I was trying to figure out who that midget was, and I was like, oh, it's Bradley Cooper.
Yes.
Bradley Cooper plays a tiny little man that is into very large women. He's like he's the ex-husband of Michelle Rodriguez. He's half her size. And while they're having this real awkward conversation, his new girlfriend walks in and she's like a half giant. And she's even bigger. And I'm just like, what do? Climb inside her? What is I don't even want to think about there are children in this theater. Dungeons and Dragons. This is rated M for miniature scenarios.
Well, when I realized it was Bradley, I kept waiting for him to like break out into a rocket voice and make some kind of
Yeah. You want to see my raccoon costume?
yeah. I was
So
waiting.
that's
for him to
how
do...
he was in Guardians of the Galaxy. He's actually very, very small in real life.
Yeah, yeah. That was a bit of a surprise. I wasn't expecting him to pop up. I mean, it was just very small, but still, it was funny.
And so, for anyone also that's wondering, the Dungeons and Dragons movie, it did have dungeons. Actually, at the very beginning, we kind of start out in a dungeon, and then they kind of go down into the Underdark later. It's not really a dungeon, but there is that first dungeon. At least they're in a couple dungeons. They get caught several times. They're terrible. So there are dungeons, and there are dragons. There's multiple dragons. There's a really fat dragon, which was interesting.
How's that work?
He's just kept eating and eating and eating, and now he's very overweight. He's a really fat dragon. And it's funny because some of his attacks are just him like rolling around and like trying to roll
He's just
over
sliding
people.
around and just picking up people as they came in his
Your
way.
size is a weapon, which is fun. And that's another fun thing about Dungeons and Dragons is anything can happen in the game. It's kind of up to the players and the dungeon master. So if he wants one of the bosses to be a really fat dragon, and that will be fun for the game, then here, have a fat dragon. Fight this. Good luck. The hither thither staff was also pretty cool. And if you're wondering what's a hither thither staff, it's a portal gun, but in a fantasy universe. So it shoots portals that you can jump through. Which I looked at my dungeon master because I saw this movie with the guy I played D&D with, and I was like, you should put a hither thither staff in our game. He's like, you guys would abuse that power so relentlessly. And they even did abuse it in the game. They're like, they shoot a portal up onto the balloon and they shoot one in the bottom of the treasure hoard and they dump all of the treasure out of the face of the balloon. And I was like, that's exactly the kind of thing I would be doing, except I would shoot a portal onto the balloon and then shoot the other into like a lake of lava. So it'd be dropping lava onto the city out of the balloon. And he's like, that's why I'm not going to let you do that. Curses. I want to be evil. Actually, my alignment is chaotic neutral. So I want to do anything. You never know. Which I think is fun. So let's see. Dungeons and Dragons film. Yeah, lots of fun. I think some nitpicks, about like the script. The whole dragonfly thing, I think, was poorly executed. They even could have used a different insect. They could have used a different scene, maybe them in a garden or still in bed, but a butterfly flies in and they're not afraid of it. They just share a tender moment of like holding a butterfly. So then later when the butterfly flies by, you think, oh, of that moment, instead of this weird, like not only was it just a weird moment that they put in the middle of the film, then they like call it back later. The dragonfly comes back and it's like, why are you reminding me of the most awkward scene in this film? So that's my main nitpick. Which again, sometimes I have many more. So this is really honestly quite good. That's how you can tell this movie's more fun than it is annoying. And it's not, for the most part, annoying. It's just fun. There's just that one thing which really bugs me. I even saw the Critical Drinkers review, and I think I agree with him. He said, like, it's not a masterpiece. It's not like I'm going to be looking back on this movie like this was the movie of 2023. No, but was it a fun, entertaining movie that was worth going to the movie theater to see? Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I'm looking forward to watching it again at some point. But it's not like it's going to take the place of like Lord of the Rings. But I don't think it's not meant to. It's more self-aware of itself for one thing. So there is more comedy in there, and it's just meant to be more fun. And I think they succeed on that. And when it comes to action, I think they really did a great job on the fight scenes, and they do a good job of keeping it like D&D. Like the first time, for instance, when Michelle Rodriguez and Chris Pine get captured. and she escapes her bonds first. They're about to be executed, and she escapes her bonds and starts fighting. Like they're surrounded by like 10
Everybody.
soldiers. There's a bunch of soldiers, and she just starts taking them down. And Chris Pine, his hands are still bound in ropes, so he just starts like rubbing them against this step. And that just reminded me of like this game I was playing when I was playing Dungeons and Dragons. One of the characters was free, the other one's bound, and you had to roll the dice. It's like roll to see if you escape. And this dude, you roll a d20, so a 20-sided die. He had to get like above a 10, and he kept rolling like a 5 and a 4 and a 2. And this is like 3 turns that he should have been escaped and helping out. Where he's the same thing happens in the movie. He's just like trying to get out of these bonds, and nothing's happening. She's beating up dudes, beating up dudes, beating up dudes. Finally, she beats up another dude. He drops his sword. Chris Pine looks at the sword and looks at the stair. He's currently rubbing his ropes on a stair, and so he scrambles over to the blade, starts working on that. And eventually he finally gets out, but like she's already beaten everybody up by then. But that's just that's funny. It's like fulfilling your role in the dungeon group. And that's why later it was so funny when because he's got a lute, and so he sings every once in a while. There's a part later where he like starts distracting some guards by singing a tune, and then all of a sudden he starts going like he starts like skipping, like he's a record skipping, and then like and then you see them in the background sneaking behind everyone, and the sorcerer had cast like a holographic spell or whatever, so Chris Pine isn't actually there, and then this thing starts like falling apart. That was really funny. That was like you attempt to cast an illusion spell, and maybe you got a bad roll, and so the dungeon master's like, all right, your illusion distracts the guards, but not because it was a flawless illusion, but because it's really disturbing. You're giving them living nightmares. The guards too are like, what is he's possessed? I enjoyed that. Yeah.
Well, with you explaining, I mean, I know there's dice involved. I mean, I've watched Stranger Things, and they kind of play.
They touch on the game there.
Yeah, so I mean, that's
they mentioned that's what's happening in the background.
That's the extent of my knowledge is Stranger Things. I kept hoping some names would pop up that I would recognize, but that didn't happen. Yeah. But with you explaining that, I could see how it makes some of the other scenes even funnier than what I thought they were originally, and they make sense.
So like when you see somebody messing up terribly, like in your head, you're like, dude just rolled a 1. Yeah. Because it's like the die roll represents how good your character did at a thing. If you roll a perfect 20, that means you did astoundingly good at it. Like, and you can do things in Dungeons and Dragons that you wouldn't expect. Like there's a mystical gate, and it has a question, and it speaks the question. You have to answer a riddle to get through. Well, my character might be like, I try to charm the gate. And it's like, okay, try and charm the gate. And you roll like a perfect 20 plus ability points or whatever. So the dungeon master's like, okay, you successfully seduce the gate, and it opens for you. And now you get to like you did. So like, I didn't have to solve the puzzle because I ended up romantically seducing this gate, and it opened for me. That sounds totally weird, but that's just the kind of thing you can do. Maybe someone else would do it differently. Like the warrior would just be like, I rolled a bust down the gate, and they roll maybe a perfect 20, they bust it down. Maybe they roll a 1 though, and it's like you charge at the gate, you lower your shoulder into it, and you break your arm. You know, it's like, so it can go either way. And so, yeah, knowing that, some of those scenes were definitely enhanced by that. And that's why I said I thought they did a good job of bringing the feel of playing a game into the movie. And especially during the last fight with the super evil witch, where everyone's fighting her and casting spells and she's dodging, I was like, that reminds me of like going up against the boss playing the game, and like you're trying to roll, and it's like your attack missed, this next person's attack and their attack missed, and like this person's attack, their attack hits, or one of their attack hits. And so when there's those flurry of attacks, and you see some of the fireballs missing and some people missing, it's like, oh yeah, I guess not every time you swing a sword you're going to connect. Not every time you throw a fireball it's going to hit. Like, it was a good back and forth, and felt like what a game would be like if there were no dice and it was all just happening in real time.
Yeah, you were talking about the step scene where he's trying to get free of his bonds, because I was like, you know, in any other movie, a guy, even though he was, his hands were bound, he'd be up, doing karate kicks or something, or picking up a brick
Yeah.
with, even though his hands are bound, he'd still
Doesn't
pick
it seem
up
like
and
they're
throw
spending
it.
an awful long time on this guy just going like this? And like that is the joke though. Like he keeps rolling ones. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah,
You
'cause
try
originally
to
I was
escape
just
your
like,
bonds, you fail.
is he just scared and he's just, stalling because she's kicking everybody's ass, or
And I think
you
it
know?
also does work to that effect as well. Like if people who didn't know about the game are sitting there watching it, they're probably thinking, this sly guy, he's acting like he can't get out of his bond. So it works in that way. But if you have played the game, you're like, I bet he's just rolling ones. How come he's doing so terrible? It's like, it's not me, it's the dice. I want to do amazing things, but I keep rolling twos. Good stuff. Fun. Yeah. Like I said, I saw it with my Dungeon and Dragon group, and we haven't been playing a super long time. We've all liked it for a while, we don't take it super serious. So it was just fun to get out there and see it. So I thought it was enjoyable. I haven't seen any like real negative reviews on it. I haven't been looking, but I think the overall response to this film is like, yeah, it's good.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen anything negative on the interwebs about it.
So rare.
And I don't know how it did on review wise.
I have a feeling we're about to find out.
Let's see.
Yeah, I'd heard
90% on Rotten Tomatoes.
for our audience, or
let me see here. %90 for the critics and 94% for audience. That's kind of rare.
wow, really?
Yeah.
That is surprisingly good.
So do you think there's
90 and 94, wow.
Yeah. Do you think there's a possibility of a
Well, I gotta tell you, if they do more, and I hope they do, I hope they base them off some of the books, which they might not, because then they have to pay the writer. But R.A. Salvatore hit one of his biggest fantasy characters, and I'm sorry if I mispronounce this, but Drizzt Do'Urden. He's a dark elf who leaves the Underdark and comes and fights for the good guys instead of the bad guys. And if they could do some of his story, because there's other characters like Wolfgar, who's this guy with a giant hammer that he can throw and it returns to him. So he's very Thor-like. But then they have all the other witches and wizards and dwarves and all kinds of stuff. And Drizzt actually has a panther that he can summon from another plane of existence. So he has like a pet that he can summon. And if they do more Dungeons & Dragons movies, I hope they focus on that. But I think that, yeah, they could do more. Even though in that case, if they were like the books, they'd probably have to be a little bit more serious. So I don't know if they would go that direction. But either way, I think they could, especially with it getting that good of a response. 90. I have to see what the box office was on, if it made enough money, though. That's the real thing.
Yeah, I was looking through the audience reviews, and the two that gave it like 2 stars.
Oh, yes. It only made 123 million worldwide. I don't know if that's going to be enough.
Actor had zero connection. Everything was flat. Computer graphics were realistic and not over the top. So that's kind of I don't know. I hate when people put that kind of review on there. And the other one was, I thought that there would have been more Dungeons and Dragons, but apparently I was wrong. And he gave it 2 stars. And I'm like, I don't know. There was plenty of dungeons. There's a few dragons, so
the budget for the movie was 150 million, and it so far has made 123 million. So no, I don't think they'll make another one. Seeing as this one lost money most. We'll see how much it makes. I mean, what, it released March 31st, so it's only been out. It might be able to pick up a little bit more, but
Yeah, if it's going to make money, it better hurry up and do it because
yeah, it's gonna be
you're
tough.
getting into.
Well, I'd say it's a great movie and go see it. But now that Super Mario's out, if you haven't seen that, I have to recommend that higher because I think that's just more fun for more people. And just, but they're both pretty good movies. And I think that Rotten Tomatoes score kind of speaks a lot about it. 90 and 94%. Like, it's rare to get audiences and critics that much the same. I think even the Super Mario movie has more hate from critics.
Really?
Yeah. I thought it was. I heard that. Yeah. 57%. 50. Look at this. 56% from the critics, 96% from the audience. That's wild. That's wild. And I would totally agree with the audience score on this one. For Super Mario Brothers, 96%. It's great. The critics' consensus.
Movie is colorful, albeit thinly plotted.
Which is a ridiculous.
Okay, it's a kid's game.
It's a ridiculous thing to say.
Do they not have kids?
I gotta see what the critics' consensus was on the Dungeons and Dragons.
I think it said it stayed pretty close to the source material. Even if you don't know HP or OP, you'll still enjoy the movie or something like that.
Even if you don't know your HP, yeah. It just is amazing to me that they would give Dungeons and Dragons a 90% and Super Mario 56.
Well, maybe these people either don't have kids or they've never played video games themselves.
That's just wild.
I mean, I haven't played all of the Mario games. I played a few here and there because my kids had Nintendo 64 and we played, but yeah.
I say the Mario movie's fun. Go see it. But clearly both these movies are pretty good, but neither of them, well, actually Mario's making some money and it just came out. Yeah, it's already made way more than Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, I think it made 377 already.
Yeah, so go see both of these films.
But it's more geared to kids who
children.
To where it would be, and I don't know, some people might have been hesitant with Dungeons and Dragons, thinking it might have been too scary for kids, or it's not necessarily a family movie, whereas Mario Easter weekend, yeah. And I was just looking at the budget. It cost $50 million less to make the Super Mario Brothers movie. So it costs $100 million to make Super Mario Brothers, $150 million to make Dungeons and Dragons, and Super Mario's already outperformed it. So that says good things for Super Mario. I'm looking forward to that connected universe, but I would like to see more from that Dungeons and Dragons as well. So if you get the chance, anyone watching, go see either and or both of these films. Yeah. I think that's just about all I got. There is supposed to be, from what I've read on the interwebs, the Marvels trailer drops tomorrow.
Well, then that's something we can look at next week and get kicked off streaming for having it playing silently and nobody knows what's happening because my YouTube page is totally fine, and then Geek News Now is like, how come nothing's working? And I'm like, I don't know because I don't run your page, but it's fine over on my YouTube. So
yeah, I didn't get that because I watched it, our show on your page, and I was like, well, I don't notice anything missing. But then again, I have brain fog, so. But I was so
you wouldn't notice anything.
Yeah. But I was like, but everything is playing,
Yeah,
the
everything
trailer is playing in the
everything
background.
eventually got restored. We did get cut off while we were live, but everything
that's
eventually
normal
went back
for us.
up. Yeah, but apparently it didn't do that for the Geek News Now YouTube. But I was
Yeah,
like,
it totally got taken down.
I was just like, that is not my problem to deal with. If you can't keep videos up on your channel, I am no longer the head of the Geek News Now YouTube page. I refuse to take responsibility for whatever's going on over there. Okay, I absolutely refuse.
Yeah, I don't know. I just thought that was weird that it would take it down on one page and not on the other. So
it was weird, and I don't know why it happened. And I went like this, and then walked away because that's. I'm like I got nothing for you. I don't know.
Did you
gotta
watch?
say,
What? Sorry.
Did you watch any of Star Wars Celebration at all?
I saw some of it. I'm not excited about Star Wars anymore. After freaking, I had some hope with Mandalorian, what they were doing. Then I saw Book of Boba Fett, which is Boba Fett's one of my favorite characters, and they just destroyed his character. And then I watched Kenobi, and they just totally misunderstood that and filmed it badly. And somehow that director was up for like a directing award, and I was like, this is a terrible direction. This is bad direction. When people are laughing at scenes because Obi-Wan Kenobi goes up to a gate and you can clearly see, because they do a top-down shot, that he can walk around the gate, and then he spends time trying to shut down the laser gate. I'm like, you know how you could have solved that problem? You don't show the top-down shot that shows that it's easy to walk around the gate, because if you just show him walking up from the sideways angle, it looks like that gate stretches on forever. So if you just showed that shot, it would have been convincing and everyone would be fine. Instead, everyone's making YouTube videos over how terrible the direction is because anybody can see that this is laughably bad. And they're like, you know what we should do? Give her an award for being terrible, and because we just fail upwards in Hollywood. And I'm not excited about new Star Wars because they're like, Rey's going to be back. Oh, good, Rey. Oh, that bitch who freaking destroyed Luke Skywalker's legacy and had him killed off so that she could take his place. Oh, now she's going to be taking over the Jedi Temple that he never really got to run, and will be leading the new Jedi Order, which he was supposed to be doing, and that's in the freaking expanded universe. And so for me, I watch the original 6, maybe Rogue One, and I read my Star Wars books from before Disney took over, and I don't participate in the trash that they have coming out, and I'm not going to pay them money to force feed me my favorite characters in misunderstood and horribly grotesque Frankenstein ways. So no, I'm Star Wars, even though I love it. Look, Star Wars. The new stuff is just, to me, a big old slap in the face. Even if there is some cool stuff to be looking forward to, like the possibility of Thrawn in Ahsoka. But at the same time, I'm like, but look what they did to Boba Fett and Kenobi. So I'm not paying them to see these things. I'll watch it at some point because it is Star Wars and I'll have to talk about it. But I cannot imagine paying money to keep seeing them do these things to characters that I really enjoy and like. And I want nothing to do more with Rey. Nothing against Daisy Ridley, but the way that they wrote those sequel movies destroyed Luke Skywalker's legacy, and anything further that she does, especially leading a new Jedi Order, which was supposed to be his thing, I'm just, why would I give you money to see things that I hate seeing? I wouldn't, and so I won't. So that's why I'm not hanging out with you guys on Cantina Happy Hour. Why isn't Chris here? Doesn't he like Star Wars? Well,
depends on what we're talking about.
Yeah, you better figure out the topic quick, because if he gets on a rambling, look out. You have to kick him off the show. And so I didn't want to put anyone up to that sort of stress. So I was like, let him have fun. I don't want to be shaking it up.
No,
John Biscardi's been talking to me about. John Biscardi's talking to me about starting a show where we can talk about whatever and not. It's like, look, if you want to say negative stuff about it, you'll be free to do that. And I'm like, okay, I could see that. I could see myself being successful in a show like that, where
the negativity show.
I didn't want that to be like, I don't want that to be the only thing that I do is just tear things down. But if there are things to be torn down, we might as well have a dedicated time and place for it. Okay, I can, so we're talking about it. We're looking at it. But until then, I'm just kind of like, Star Wars, I don't like a lot of there's nothing new in Star Wars that's happening right now that I can honestly say I'm excited about. I haven't even watched this current season of The Mandalorian, which, as far from what I've seen, has been ridiculous. I don't know, Lizzo, Jack Black, cameos of that sort are just, it's like, hey, our show isn't good, so here's Jack Black and Lizzo. They're people that you're familiar with, right?
I think for that particular episode, I thought it was too many cameos. I mean, either had Jack and Lizzo, because in this episode they're married. So, okay, just, have them as a cameo. But then they added Christopher Lloyd. So now you got 3 cameos. And I heard a lot of people say, and I could see it, where it kind of took them out of the episode because there were so many cameos.
It's like Star Wars is supposed to be escapism. That's why in like the first Star Wars movie, not that he didn't necessarily want to cast like big name, but he didn't want to cast big name actor. He wanted nobodies so that you wouldn't get caught up in like, oh, there's that, it's so you could escape. And so the more you have these cameos and things like that, and the more you have things like Book of Boba Fett and Kenobi, it's like, make your own new characters if you want to do something, but stop messing with. Oh, hey, look, it's Boba Fett. Everyone loves him because he's a bounty hunter and he never takes off his helmet. You want to make a show about him? Yeah, except in the show, he's not going to be a bounty hunter anymore, and he'll take off his helmet a bunch.
Well, I tell you what, I watched a lot of the celebration. I didn't get up at, I don't know what time they started because it's London time.
Across the pond.
I was not getting up that early on the weekend. But the one thing, and I cried throughout the whole segment, which was maybe 15, 20 minutes long, if even that long, was there at the, I don't even know what they call it, the center stage where, 500 people are standing there watching them do interviews. It wasn't a panel, but they had Hayden come out.
Oh, but that place blew up.
Oh, it did. If you get a chance to catch just that segment of Hayden coming out at Star Wars Celebration.
I saw a segment.
I cried. And he was so choked up that I think he cried just a little bit because he was so, and he even said he was so overwhelmed. And I was like, God damn it, he deserves it.
Because people love you and you're great, and Kathleen Kennedy is terrible. And that's why when she walked out, everyone's cheering because someone walks out before and everyone's like, woo! And then she walks out and it's like, yeah.
Was it crickets? I didn't see that.
Some people clap, but you could, and then they announced like Pedro Pascal came up after her, and then everyone was like, woo! And you could just hear it like jump back up in volume, and it's like, that was cold. And if you watch her, she like waves real fast and then puts her head down and walks away. And I'm just like, KK, sweet KK, what are you doing? Oh, I'm gonna announce 3 more Star Wars movies. That's why the thing with Rey, it's been announced, but I'm like, with any luck, it'll be like the 20 other projects that she announced that have never seen the light of day. She does this every single Star Wars celebration. She's like, hey, guess what? Get excited. There's going to be a Kenobi movie and a Boba Fett movie. And then Last Jedi will come out and those will get canceled. We're going to have a Rogue Squadron movie. It's also going to be about Rey's timeline and her Rogue Squadron, and not the Rogue Squadron that made the name Rogue Squadron famous. And people were like, that sounds terrible. Okay, that's also been shelved. Lando. We're going to make a Lando. They said they were going to make a Lando movie when Solo came out. She said that because she was on the red carpet, and she loves saying things on red carpets. Well, like on the Last Jedi red carpet, when she was like, Rian Johnson's going to have a trilogy. Well, Lando and Rian Johnson's trilogy, that's 4 more movies added to the, 5, 6, 7, 8 that have never going to happen or never happening. The last thing I heard on Lando was like, they're in talks with Donald Glover about doing Lando. I'm like, maybe they should have talked to him before Kathleen Kennedy announced they were doing a Lando project. Maybe. She just says the darndest things. It's like Kathleen Kennedy says the darndest things about Star Wars. She'll come out there and she'll be like, look, we don't have any novels that we can draw from. We don't have any books or source material. And people are like, hey, this is the expanded universe, which you decanonized. So I'm sure you're aware of it. Well, not decanonized, but just threw out the window. And now, like, we're seeing Thrawn and stuff, and it's like.
So well, yeah, you mentioned Thrawn,
like,
and
is like
the only. I mean, I thought they did okay with him in Rebels. So that kind of gives me a little hope.
Well, they literally said in the trailer for Ahsoka, heir to the Empire. They used the words heir to the Empire. So
yeah,
it would take a really big amount of balls to say that in the trailer and then not go that direction in the film. Like, that would be such, if you did that to Star Wars fans at this point, all the ones that are still hanging on and still watching the crap that you're shoveling out. Oh, and then you were to bait them with an heir to the Empire and then not go that storyline. Oh my goodness, would you see some shit happening then? But so I imagine they will be going that direction. They said at Celebration, I saw this much, that Filoni was like, we talked to Timothy Zahn about how to bring Thrawn into this, but Rian Johnson said that he had Star Wars experts on hand when he was writing his script, and that they said the hyperspace ramming was fine. So when it comes to people saying things about Star Wars, I believe it when I see it in the theater, but I don't see Star Wars in theaters anymore. So I'll believe it when it comes out for free. Because I'm not paying you for more of that nonsense. And I'm a man who's actually a fan of nonsense.
Oh!
Depending. But anyway, we've passed the hour and we're done Super Mario's and Dungeons and Dragons. So if you want more on Star Wars in more of a positive light, probably tune in on Thursday for the Cantina Happy Hour. If you want to hear me on tirades about things, you can always tune in here on MCU Mondays, because I usually find something to on the docket, and I found a way to start. So, MCU Mondays, and whenever that new show comes out that me and the Geek and I are going to do, I'm sure that just sounds like the whole show is just going to be me going on diatribes of things that I don't like. So that should be fun for everyone.
Oh. And you can catch me on Thursday nights and also on Friday nights with Geek and I, as we, I think we're on the second to the last episode of Picard, which this third season has been
the trick
perfection. So,
oh yeah.
The third season, not the first two. But yeah, you could just watch third season, and
I probably could, especially since I have not watched a lot of Star Trek. Probably watched more of the Orville than I have actual Star Trek.
That's a good show. I keep hoping they'll announce more seasons of the Orville, but
the last season was a little.
I thought it was really good. That they got a little bit more serious and not so much.
Yeah, I didn't like that. I was like, what happened to all the laughs?
I wish they would like have a 50-50 balance, because I did miss the funny stupid shit that they did in earlier seasons.
I like that.
But
and what's his face died? Oh, Norm Macdonald. He played the gelatinous blob, which I just love. I mean, like the first episode, he walks through him and it was just Norm Macdonald, and I love that he was playing a blob, but it's just Norm Macdonald's voice coming out of a blob. I'm like, this is what I'm here for. Mm-hmm. God bless you, Norm Macdonald. Okay, that's it for us today. Thank you very much for joining us here on MCU Mondays. I am going to find the language clip that I like to play at the end, and that's going to happen any second now. There it is. Okay, see ya.
Shit! Language. Wait a second. No one else is going to deal with the fact that Cap just said language? Just slipped out.
Find the scepter.
And for gosh sake, watch your language.
That's not going away anytime soon.
You bet your ass.
Steve, you said a bad language word.
Did you tell everyone about
The
that?
heado's imprinted.
Out with the platinum bastard.
Steve doesn't like that kind of talk.
You know what, Romanoff?
Fury?